Welcome to the BFI. My name's Heather Stewart. I'm creative director here, and you all know why you're here. What can I say? We've got a filmmaker who's taken on the mantle of Hitchcock and David Lean. He's making big, spectacular films that are really about something that make you think, cinematically ambitious, but superlative entertainment. What can I say? Christopher Nolan and Emma Thomas are coming on stage. Director and producer of this film, and Emma Thomas, who's the producer of the film. They're also married to each other, and they have 4 kids. I don't know how you do anything. At any rate, I wasn't going to exactly say why Dunkirk, because this is one of the greatest stories in the history of Britain. Fantastic military disaster that ends in something great. Just tell us about approaching a real-life event like this, because you have to honour the people, I suppose, and you're making a big entertainment. How did you prepare for the film?
Well, I mean, really, it was a process of a lot of intensive research to get the events of the evacuation kind of under my fingers, if you like, before I wrote the screenplay. And then what I decided to do was create fictional characters to sort of lead you through the events as I understood them and as I researched them, and try and touch on a lot of different things that I had seen in these first-hand accounts. Emma had given me a couple of books of collected first-hand accounts of people who were there, which is it's really inspiring to be able to read people's words who actually lived through it. And I actually did then get the privilege and the honour with my historical consultant, Joshua Levine, of going and meeting several of the veterans. There are not that many left. They're well into their 90s at this point. I got to sit with several of them and hear their memories firsthand. A lot of that material worked its way into the film.
Presumably lots of contradictory stories, because one of the great things in the film is patient men queuing to get on a boat and then chaos somewhere else, so you must have heard a lot of stories. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about, I'm sure the audience is interested, I mean, this isn't a war film. There's no gore, you don't see the enemy, there's no film star heroics, it's not all the things I would think of as a war film. So just tell us about that. What was it that drove you to make the film the way you did?
When I thought about what was interesting to me about the story of Dunkirk, it was that it's not a traditional war story. It's not really about a battle. I mean, there's a battle raging on the perimeter, but the evacuation itself is a very different thing. It's really a suspense story. And so for me, the language of the suspense film, the thriller, seemed more apt for telling this story than a straight war film.
Listen, wait till you see it. He never takes his foot off the pedal. It is agonising. I was just saying to Chris and I had to go lie down after I watched it last week. Christopher has curated a season here at NFT, so please do come, because he's picked some fantastic films that exactly sum up some of these things, as well as a war film. We've got All Quiet on the Western Front, but anyway, great films. Film, we'd have to talk about film, the look of the film. The film feels real. I mean, the only other 2 films I've seen with Dunkirk here, and one is shot in Canberra Sands and the other shot in Redcar. We're in Dunkirk here, and you've shot on film. Tell us about shooting on IMAX and what that brings. Because I think a lot of people think that shooting film is some weird little funny thing that somebody over there is doing. It's really important for the pleasure of meeting this film. Can you say something about that?
I mean, I think that, you know, it's something, as you know, we have championed for a long time is continuing to shoot on film. And on you know, we'd been gradually shooting more and more footage in large format, and the great thing about this film was that it was perfectly suited for these very loud IMAX cameras, because there's not an enormous amount of dialogue compared with Chris's other films, and unfortunately it's a little tricky on a beach with there's salt water and there's sand and so on. But the truth is, actually, there is one very good anecdote which I'm going to tell you, which we haven't really talked about, and we should, frankly. But the film. Chris is wondering what on earth I'm going to say. No, I mean, the film cameras, they took a beating, but it worked absolutely perfectly. But there was one very specific incident which happened where we were trying not to say too much, but basically, it ended up an IMAX camera ended up underwater for about 4 hours. And
Careless filmmaking.
It was a scary moment during which I was, before we'd even retrieved it, I was calling the lab and saying, this is what's happened, how, what should we do? And they said, if you were in LA, we'd say just keep it in the water and we'll bring it straight here. As you have to ship it all the way from Holland back to LA, we might think about it a little differently, but, and they gave the camera team instructions. We sent it back, they processed the film, looks amazing. And the camera had to have a little bit of, reconditioning, but is fine. Now, if it was shot on digital, there would be nothing left of any of it, so I'm just saying.
I just want to say to the audience, just so you get it, an IMAX camera is a huge thing. It weighs 54 pounds, which is more than 3.5 stone. It's the size of a Labrador in weight. So imagine carrying a Labrador on your shoulder, which is what always Van Nolan and his camera guys doing. Anyway, but what I want to say is the aerial photography, we were chatting earlier and I was saying, I'm quite old, I've seen a lot of films. I've never seen anything like this. And I wasn't thinking about it when I was watching it because I'm so in the moment, but when I came out of that film, I don't know. I just don't know how you did what you did up there. Well, you really think you're in that Spitfire?
Yeah, that's what we wanted to do is really make it immersive entertainment and really put you in the cockpit of the plane. I love planes, I love aerial footage.
Obvious.
We've done aerial work in our other films, but we've never really pushed it this far. And there are a lot of different things that went into that, but one thing that I was determined to do, which we were able to pull off, is quite often when you look at these scenes in films over the years, there can be some really spectacular aerial work, and then the shots of the actors kind of let it down because they're clearly green screen or back in the day, backings, whatever. And so one of the things we were able to do was get a hold of a plane called a Yak, which is a Soviet-era plane made in Romania, and it has two cockpits, front and back. It's about the same size and shape as a Spitfire, so we were able to dress it, remake it to look like a Spitfire, mount the camera on the wing or the fuselage or wherever we wanted, put the actor in front of the plane, or the back depending on the shot, and then have the pilot fly it from just out of shot. And so we could actually take the actor in the air, dogfighting for real, with real Spitfires on either side, and in that way, really maintain the tone of the photography, and that was a determination. Hoyte was a huge help in figuring out how to get this huge camera, as you say, the size of a Labrador, into a small Spitfire cockpit, and in the end, with a lot of work between IMAX and Panavision, they were able to develop sort of snorkel lens attachments and things so that we could mount the camera somewhere else, behind the pilot or whatever, and then angle, with this special angled lens, and get right over the shoulder, or put the lens exactly where the head of the pilot would be, and really try and give you, a first-person point of view.
I have to say to the audience that Christopher and Emma, they're, as Emma said, are great champions of film, in seeing films the way the director intended, so bringing 35mm back for archives like ours, and they have been fantastically generous. I would like everyone just to say thank you, because the National Archive has a really great donation from them to make 35mm prints. So signaling that everyone's waiting to see this fantastic film. I did want to ask you about the music, because you collaborate a lot with Hans Zimmer. I just wondered, do you brief him before you shoot the film? How do you direct him? Because the music here was different from what he normally does. There's a lot of silence, whistling in the wind through the cockpit, and so it's a great score. I mean, how did you work on that with him?
You don't really direct Hans. Try and sort of catch him and bottle a bit of him and then put it in the film. And every film is different, and the process has been different on every movie. In the case of this film, I don't want to say too much before people have seen it, but
we'll get on.
It was very early, involving him, showing him the structure of the script, and talking about ways in which we needed to work with that. So I do think this film represents the tightest fusion of sound effects, music, and picture that we've been able to achieve. And for better or for worse, you guys will be the judge. But certainly, that was my ambition for the piece, and that's what we've done.
Well, I need to say congratulations. This is a fantastic film. You need to rush out and place your Oscar bets now, but I don't want to be too crass. Honestly, the film is great, superb, well done. So
thank you.
Please
Thank
enjoy
you
the
very
film.
much.
Thank you.